think that they proved a few different things. They did prove the racketeering, and they definitely proved the sex trafficking. I'm pretty sure that they proved the racketeering too. And there, by the way, for all the social media heads that think that their opinion in the comment section or what the comment section is going to determine what happens in court, it doesn't. And they're going to go off the legal definition of these crimes. You may feel like, oh, it was consensual, but trafficking is when you move somebody from one state to another with the intent paying them for sex. I don't care if you're going from Barstow, California to Las Vegas and it's an 1.5-hour drive. If you go from state to state, it's federal sex trafficking. If you take a prostitute from here to there and pay them for that type of thing. Racketeering is I'm using my business to fund crime. I'm using a legal organization to not just fund, but to operate an illegal organization. That's racketeering. Excuse me. I think that the prosecution has proved those things, despite what anybody on the internet feels. It's gonna be a tough uphill battle. I think it's about how much time Diddy is gonna get, not if he's gonna get time. I think he's gonna still be convicted. But I think it's all gonna come down to those closing arguments, because you got to remind the jury, hey, this is the legal definition of the crime. This is how we proved it. This is the legal definition of that crime. This is how we proved it, right? And as far as racketeering, hey, it meets these standards, and these two things have been proven. We've proven these two things. This is racketeering, right? So, anyways, let's get back to it. It says, in a letter to the judge, prosecutors said that they will not instruct the jury to consider kidnapping or arson or aiding and abetting sex trafficking charges prior to deliberations. So those are the charges that are being dropped. The kidnapping, attempted kidnapping, attempted arson, aiding and abetting trafficking. So in terms of the attempted kidnapping, right? That charge was brought because of the Capricorn Clark. One of Diddy's assistants testified, his former assistant testified in this trial, said that she was kidnapped by Diddy. And some other people, obviously, Cassie and some of the other victims from the freak offs are going to say, hey, I was kidnapped, but nobody's going to believe that anyway. And the prosecution knew that nobody was going to believe that. The jury is not going to buy that, right? Nobody felt like Cassie was kidnapped, but Capricorn Clark, who was the next assistant, did say that she was kidnapped at gunpoint and forced labor, was forced to go to Kid Cudi's house and throw a Molotov cocktail in his car. And a woman's DNA was found on the car. She kind of went to court, and it was insinuated that she was the woman and that Diddy kidnapped her. But like I said, they weren't so much worried about those type of charges. They were worried about opening the door so they could prove the big charges, which is the trafficking and the racketeering. Same thing with the arson. So they're trying to get rid of those. The arson will be blowing up Kid Cudi's car, right? They don't care about that. The quote says, the government understands the court's desire for streamlined instructions. Prosecutors wrote in the letter obtained by People. With that in mind, the government has suggested ways to streamline those instructions, right? So this is very important. The government understands the court's desire for streamlined instructions, basically saying that the judge feels, so a packet comes, and it's the packet that the jury is going to get. And basically what the prosecutor is saying, we're trying to simplify that packet for the instructions for the jury, so they don't feel like they have so many things that they got to read through to come up with a guilty or not guilty verdict. So the government went on to say, with that in mind, the government has suggested a way to streamline those instructions. The government is no longer planning to proceed of these theories of liability, so instructions are no longer necessary. Basically, we're not worried about this arson charge. We're not worried about this charge, this attempted kidnapping or attempted arson. We're just going to take those out of that packet that the jury is going to get. All we want to convict him on is trafficking and racketeering. We ain't worried about the rest of the stuff. The letter was filed this morning after 6 weeks of trial testimony. The attorneys for both Diddy and the government, along with the judge, are finalizing instructions to the jury this afternoon. Closing arguments are scheduled to begin in the next couple days. Jury deliberations potentially begin in the next 2 days. So Diddy is still charged, the article says, Diddy is still charged with trafficking, racketeering, and transportation to engage in prostitution. Those charges were not affected by the prosecution's letter, but the jury will now have fewer predicates to consider during deliberations. Excuse me. So that just summarized it all right there. Diddy is not just, all his charges are not dropped. It's just the ones that they don't care about. And we talked about this, and I told you guys, the government is smart, man. When you see that piece of paper and it says, on Diddy's indictment, you know what it says? The United States of America versus Sean Combs. The United States of America versus one guy. They're not stupid. They didn't spend all this money on overtime, Homeland Security raids, 8 years of tracking this dude. It is a business for the government. And they're not playing games. And so these are streamlined. It's just streamlined instructions that the government is trying to present. It's not that they want Diddy to get off. It's not that they want that they think that he's innocent. It's not that they're scared to get him convicted. We never cared about those charges, is what the government is saying. We don't care about the attempted kidnapping or the attempted arson. They really don't care about none of the victims. If I'm being real with y'all, they don't care about none of these victims. They care about putting Diddy in jail. They don't care if Cassie got beat up unless it proves that we could put Diddy in jail. They don't care what he was doing in his personal life unless it proves we could put him in jail. It's a business for them. They spent so much money to get him convicted. They're probably gonna get a conviction. Now, the charges that he is still charged with, I think that they've proven those. Sex trafficking, he's still charged with. Racketeering, still charged with. Transportation to engage in prostitution, he's still charged with. All those, I mean, all those are still valid, right? The trafficking, we already know. Once you take somebody from out of state, that's what it is. The racketeering, we already know. There's a reason that everybody that testified against him had to get immunity first. If they felt like we were innocent and there's nothing, we didn't do no crime, what's there to get immunity for? He had 7 employees testify against him. It wasn't just Cassie and the Jane Doe. It wasn't just like women that said, and prostitutes, excuse me, and all the other prostitutes. It wasn't just these people. He has 7 employees, former employees, testify against him. Now, I am curious what's going on with the Christina Karam thing, because her name was mentioned at least 20 times. Her name was mentioned by literally every witness. So I am curious if she's going to be convicted or she's going to be tried next. What's going to go on? But it's not like he just had a couple girls testify against him that's mad. No. But people don't read. So he's still charged with racketeering. He's still charged with trafficking and transportation to engage in prostitution. Those are crimes. I don't know why people think transportation to engage in prostitution is not a crime just because somebody consents. Prostitution is a crime. Period. All prostitutes consent. They all want the money. That don't mean that it's not a crime. You get what I'm saying? So those things I think the government has proven. And it's going to be, it's going to be tough for him to beat that case.